Hello to all the listeners. My name is Dylan,
And I'm Dylan.
and we would like to thank you for taking the time to give us a listen. And if you do enjoy, please drop a like and subscribe for our weekly podcast, or even check out the clips that we post from each show.
You can also follow us at our Twitter on screen and then tune in each week Wednesday night for our weekly podcast streaming at Dat Dill on Twitch.
Thank you, and enjoy the podcast.
Okay. Now we're officially live.
Sweet.
Yeah, welcome to the Dylan and Dylan podcast for May 12th, 2021. Go ahead and say hello and start us off while I look at this.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We've got a bunch of different topics that we're going to talk about throughout this whole podcast. So there's a bunch of news that actually came about this last week and a half that I thought was interesting that I want to talk about. Covering topics basically everywhere from the Bears, Aaron Rodgers, Metcalf's 100-meter dash and what that means for the NFL, Madison Bumgarner's no, that doesn't count. Venom trailer, the Conjuring trailer. We're going to talk about the Eternals and kind of the future rollouts that are happening in Marvel's Phase 4. So all these things are going to be talked about as we kind of go through. So starting out, this is just kind of actually something that I thought was interesting that came up on my feed that I thought was pretty wild. And it basically says the highest paid athletes in the world from last year, it's actually kind of a really wild list for what you would think. I don't know about you, but right off the bat, so obviously Conor McGregor, to me that makes sense because of all of his endorsements and everything like that. I mean, he just sold his frickin' whiskey for what, 600 million or something like that was the Yeah, did you know
Really?
this?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yeah, he just sold his whiskey for like 600 million. It's supposed to be really good. I haven't had it yet, which is on me for not trying it, but it's supposed to be really good. So, there's that. So right off the bat, him being number one with all that stuff, that makes sense to me. Um, who's that number two again? Right there, it's what does that say? Oh, Lionel
Messy.
Messi. I'm just dumb. I can't read. That's Lionel Messi. Yeah, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo being at the top of the list always makes sense to me. I mean, with the endorsements and everything that they're in and do, that's not surprising in the least, especially because they're the two highest paid football players in the world. So not surprising whatsoever. And then we have Dak Prescott, which is really shocker for me, but I guess you're the Cowboys quarterback, and the Cowboys are one of the top. I think the Forbes list was Cowboys were number one. I think they were the
Yeah.
highest valued franchise in the world. So not surprising that the quarterback of the highest valued franchise would be one of the highest paid athletes in the world. And then you have LeBron James, which of course, the NBA being as popular as it is worldwide, LeBron obviously being LeBron, is going to have all the endorsement money, all the, his salary, everything he does, all of his investments, plays pizza, all that stuff. That's all going to factor in, which makes sense. And then you kind of go finally into tennis, which Roger Federer always sneaks in there every year. So that's, right there. And then you have, who's the next one right there? That's
Neymar.
Neymar. Oh, yeah, duh, Neymar. Yeah, so Neymar's there. Oh, I'm sorry, Federer was after Neymar. Both of those make sense. Again, Neymar, one of the best football players in the world, and so obviously one of the highest paid. And then obviously you get players like Tom Brady and stuff popping up. That makes sense to me. So kind of funny. I just thought the list was kind of interesting to look at. It doesn't surprise me in the least that these athletes are on there. Conor McGregor being obviously the number one overall is pretty crazy, but after everything he's done outside of just ultimate fighting and mixed martial arts, everything he's involved in as far as investments, like I said, his whiskey, as well as endorsement deals, things he's in, all that stuff, that makes a lot of sense to me, especially because he's blown up to become this larger than life kind of athlete. I've always been a kind of McGregor fan. I can't obviously condone some of the things he's done. you know
Yeah.
to me, it happens. I mean, when Mike Tyson was huge, he did some stuff that was questionable, same kind of thing. It's those guys that are in that fighting world, whenever they get as big as they are, there's some questionable moves a lot of times by those top guys. But Obviously, it's done well for him considering he's made ridiculous amount of money. The Mayweather fight, he actually looked pretty good in, despite being not really a heavily trained boxer. Yeah, he was early in his career. I understand that. He's more of a stand-up UFC fighter. That's fine. I get that, but that's very different, obviously, than boxing. So for him to go out, put out a showing that he did there was actually really surprising, and he made like $100 million off of it. So, obviously, smart business investment. But yeah, so that's not surprising he's at the top of the list with everything that's been going on and all the investments and everything like that. And it really goes to show that honestly, that you have to, when you become that big, you really need to take advantage of all the other things. And that's really where all your cash flow comes from. I mean, if you look at LeBron, for example, LeBron's on here at what, 90, what is that, 95 million? So
96.5 million, which is crazy considering like is that Dak Prescott's like new contract kicking in or no? Like not even his NFL
yeah,
kit pay.
it's his contract kicking in, but it's also all the endorsement deals he does because he does a ton of endorsement stuff. I mean, you see him more than you see Lamar, and Lamar won a freaking MVP trophy. So, it's one of those where it's just he's the Cowboys quarterback that always plays into their kind of mystique about them, and then on top of it, he's a quarterback in the NFL. He just had that massive contract. I don't think the contract's kicking in this year because this is for the previous calendar year. So it's
Gotcha.
not mainly his contract. It's more about just all the stuff he does, but it's not surprising. Cowboys quarterbacks are always going to be up on the list, especially if they're well liked and talented. And then the other thing too is they obviously with LeBron, for example, 96 million. I think his salary this year is in like the 30s, the low 30s. So
Yeah.
obviously everything else that he's doing off the court is what's making him the other 60 something $1 million. So
Yeah.
it's really one of those where it's like you need to capitalize on your fame and everything like that, which I didn't think that this conversation was going to go in this direction, but I'm going to bring it up just because it's annoying for me as a baseball fan. This is why baseball is annoying. It's because baseball, like, they just don't do anything outside of like none of their big name athletes. Like, you don't see Mike Trout on this list. You don't see him on this list because he doesn't do endorsements and talks, and he's not vocal on social media and everything. Which is
Yeah.
again why baseball, unfortunately, is one of those sports. Is a sport that's just losing popularity with younger crowds because younger crowds are like, okay, first off, I can't watch highlights because they're not anywhere, and because the Major League Baseball's got a kibosh on that for some freaking reason. And then
Yeah.
after that, not only can they not watch highlights, but then they also, the players aren't vocal. They don't see them in social media. They don't see them on shows or appearing in shows or appearing in movies or all of these things that Cristiano Ronaldo and Neymar and LeBron and all these people have done, Tom Brady even. And then not only all that, but then on top of all that, you also have things like the freaking incident where Tatis Jr. hit a, grand slam last year for the Padres, and he swung on a 3-0 pitch, and people were like, "Oh, he's breaking an unwritten rule in baseball, swinging on a 3-0 pitch while his team's up." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, is the name of the game not to freaking swing the bat and hit a home run?" Like, I don't understand, like, "Oh,
Was that
let's
a real
just not."
controversy? Really?
Yeah, that was a real controversy, Dylan. The manager came out and said that he broke an unwritten rule, and it was
Oh
like
my god.
ridiculous. I'm not kidding. This is why baseball's losing popularity. And I love baseball. Like, I love the ins and outs. I played it for 13 years. I love all the duel happens. I love watching that. I was a pitcher, so I understand the mental game and kind of where ball placement, pitch choice, all that fun stuff. I understand all of that aspects, and it just I can see the game just losing popularity as this type of stupid crap happens. But yeah, it was an unwritten rule that he shouldn't have swung while they were up by so much with a 3-0 count, and whatever, who gives a crap? I'm sorry, I didn't know that you can't swing a bat and hit the ball. Like, I didn't know that that wasn't the name of the game at all times. Like, I don't care if you
Baseball's
lose by.
normally so uncontroversial. That's a noted story on the week.
Dylan, it's so sad. It's so sad. This is why baseball isn't as popular. I mean, it's popular in America, but this is why baseball just doesn't have as much popularity as it could have because of crap like that. Like, you don't need to go over this whole like, the manager coming on and talking in a press conference after the game about that. Like, do you think that when the frickin', Warriors in their heyday, like, blew out the frickin' Timberwolves by 50 points, that the owner of the Timberwolves got on TV the next day and was like, "I can't believe they just kept shooting the basketball after we were down by 30." And it's like, "Oh, really? You couldn't believe that they were shooting like, I
Yeah.
just it's just stupid. I don't this is what I'm saying. This is why baseball is losing popularity. And I love the sport, so it hurts to like see that it's losing popularity, but I also understand it because I'm like, listen, every other sport has been doing it well. And then you know what the other problem too is the NHL is in the same boat. Like the NHL, you know where the NHL learned all of their media stuff to? They went to freaking baseball. They like
Yeah.
talked to baseball about like their media and like advertising and all that stuff. That's why you never know when a freaking hockey game's on because they never do it. They never advertise it. So it's like, are the Blackhawks playing? I have no clue. I don't even know if it's in season yet. Like it's one
You
of those
find
where
out
they
when you
just
go to
don't.
the bar because that's the thing
That's
they're
what
advertising for the night.
yeah, at the bar when it's on and I'm like, "Oh, we're losing 4-1. Interesting." And then I just like continue on with my life because they don't advertise it ever. Even though like hockey, if you look at like polls consistently where people like vote on like what's the best playoffs situation in any sport, hockey's usually like number 2 behind the NFL. And it's like, how do they have the second best playoffs as far as major sports go in America, and yet they don't like they're not popular because nobody knows when it's happening. Nobody sees the highlights. Nobody like players aren't in media. Like even when the Blackhawks were in the dynasty thing, like did you see Patrick Kane and Tays go on like national TV? Like yeah, they were in Chicago and
No.
stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I mean, they didn't go
That's
like they have like things like the NBA and stuff. They'll have like they'll have I don't know like Kevin Durant or whatever like on Jimmy Kimmel like before the finals like tip off or like whatever it is. And no, they don't go on talk shows.
yeah,
They never did that because they were just like, I mean, I
that's
guess
what I'm
they should
saying.
have. It's kind of weird now that they didn't because I know there's so much dead air that they could be filling with like the new CBS local drama, but instead they do that instead of like whoever's the going running for the third championship in 5 years, what have you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's bad advertising. Whoever the advertising department, as well as like the development department for the freaking Major League Baseball and the NHL, should go to the NFL and just ask, like, "Hey, how did you guys blow up to be as big as you are?" Because, like, yeah, the NFL's been a big thing in America, but like, why is every single game in England sell out? Well, it's because we've like advertised there well, where people are enjoying it and people follow teams. Like there's Jaguar fans in freaking London that like are like hardcore, go to every single time the Jaguars are there. They say it's like one of the biggest followings is the Jaguars having that like there. So it's just weird that like the NHL and Major League Baseball just don't have that kind of like, I don't know, just young like crowd, young audience that like actually wants to watch the games. And
Well,
then the other issues too is they always talk. Sorry, one second.
yeah.
The other issue too that I want to point out too is they always talk about the games being too long, and they always talk about like, oh, we're gonna put in a new rule to shorten the games. Yeah, then they put in a rule, and it's supposed to shorten the games, and the games are somehow still 3 hours, like 3.5 hours. Like I'm like, of course people aren't gonna want to watch that. Like it doesn't make any sense why that and a game that's when a game's on at freaking 8 o'clock at night. Good luck trying to get me to watch that on like a Tuesday night at freaking 8:30 when the game comes on, and I gotta watch it till midnight, and we're gonna lose 4-2. Like I don't want to watch that.
Yeah, no,
Like
what I was gonna say about that is that it actually wasn't that long ago that the NFL was in the same exact boat as baseball. Not in terms of like the lack of popularity or anything, but like access to social media, sharing highlights, things about broadcasts, all that sort of thing. It
yeah,
wasn't really that long ago that they had NFL.com as the number one place to get all of your highlights for local things. Like they basically did the same thing that all media companies do, where they try and like subjugate it to one specific area and draw the traffic there, but at the cost of the NFL's video player. I don't know if you remember this, was horrible. It's still
yeah,
horrible. I don't know if it still worked anymore because nobody uses it and nobody ever wanted to use it, but it was terrible. And the only way that I actually watched highlights, I'm pretty sure lots of other people started watching highlights, was off of like a streamable link, which is basically just someone grabbing it off of like a pirated feed or what have you. But that got shared around and that got millions of views because, oh, it turns out people want to watch a highlight when you could jump to it and it actually loads immediately with no ads. And then it's in HD compared to like the 480p they did at NFL.com. And now they're sharing them on Twitter and whatever else they're doing on now, because it's easily accessible. It's click, it's boom, send to your phone, pick it up, and then you're easily able to watch it. Going to a desktop website in like this age now, specifically to watch highlights, or even worse, being forced to watch it on mobile in like a intended desktop website, is terrible. And they made a huge turn, and now, yeah, you can look at everything. The second it comes out, the NFL tweets like, even like a touchdown, like game-winning play, or whatever else. It's not like
Yeah.
hidden, because it's so stupid that baseball's trying to do that, where they're like, oh, well, we don't want to share our content to other people because we want people to come to games, watch the broadcast, whatever. So if we share the highlights, people clearly won't watch the game. It's never been like that. It's been like that for like
No.
10, 20 years. It's been the opposite, and they're not
Well,
switching
and
to that.
yeah, and you have to get with the times. I mean, it's the like with everything with YouTube and everything, the popularity. I mean, most of the content that I watch is on streaming services or YouTube. I probably watch like more YouTube than I do actual shows and
And what's
movies.
the
And
reason
it
for that, primarily?
for me, like why
Yeah.
I choose to.
Yeah, like
Well,
why'd you
it's
start to switch to that? Why would you not watch TV?
well, okay, so okay, I like just to kind of talk about it. So obviously, like commercials are obnoxious.
Yep.
I pay I pay $10. I spend the most time on YouTube, so it makes sense that I would pay for YouTube Premium. I pay for YouTube Premium for me because I don't get ads because I can watch videos instantaneously the moment I click. Considering it's the service that I watch the most, I'm okay with spending $10 a month to get YouTube Premium. It's not a big deal. So
Yeah.
I have YouTube Premium and I get to watch every video. The moment I click on it, it starts. I don't get ads and anything like that. What's nice about that is I can click on anything and there's all kinds of, I follow YouTubers for video games. I follow YouTubers for sports games. I will follow YouTubers that talk about do like reviews on things. I watch YouTubers that react to stuff. I watch YouTubers like I have a Madden YouTubers that I like. I have 2K YouTubers that I like for basketball. I have all these like different YouTubers that I can watch. So when I'm in the mood for like, like, oh, I just heard some football news from the Bears that like energized me and I'm like hyped up. It's like, okay, well now for the rest of the night, I can click on just YouTube videos that are pertaining to like NFL, Madden, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I can watch it instantly. And
Instantly. That's an
yeah,
important thing too.
instantly. That's the other thing too and that's why streaming services are so huge because you can watch it instantly. Like it's just the season's there. If you want to watch the show, watch the whole show as it's out currently, and then that's it. And like yeah, shows might come on to like Netflix like a year after it's been out or something like that, but like I don't need to watch we've evolved to where most of our generation doesn't need to watch shows like immediately. Like it's not one of those things where it's like I need to wait Sunday, I need to watch it every single Sunday. Like that's what I'm looking forward to. Our generation has kind of gotten to the point where now where if I have to wait a year for the new season, I would rather wait a year for the new season than try to figure out where it is on TV or on a streaming service every week and then try to watch that every week. I would like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'll watch the other previous 3 seasons that are available. And then when the new one comes out, watch the new one. Like that's fine. So I think that's why I've transitioned to more streaming services or YouTube is because watching live TV is just not as entertaining. Like the ads are supposed to be, obviously they track everything we do. Nobody's surprised by that. Some people are, and it's blows my mind when they are, but essentially everything is tracked. So ads that pop up on certain things, like when you're watching an NFL football game, you're not going to get ads for things that you would see on a cooking channel or things that you would see on like a late night, comedy show. Like it's going to be ads that are focused to who are the core people watching this game right now. So that's how it is with every single show and every single network. If you're watching cooking shows, they look at statistically who's going to be watching cooking shows at 9 o'clock at night on a Friday night. And it's like, okay, well, here's the base. Let's advertise to that base because this is what they purchase. So like that's how advertising is. And so for me, like I don't need to go through all that advertising. Like I would rather just watch YouTube or a streaming service where I don't get the ads or I can skip the ads or whatever. And So yeah, so that's just, I mean, that's my little rant on all that. But to kind of
Yeah,
get back to what we were saying, though, that's why baseball and NHL have lost their popularity, or lost the popularity contest to like the NFL, um, and basketball, because basketball and the NFL, you could watch highlights, like you said, instantaneously. But not only that, but you can also go back and watch highlight videos, and and the NBA and NFL aren't shy about putting out videos that they know we want. Like they'll put out highlight videos, or they'll put out like, watch Julio Jones, moss a guy or something like that, for a 45-yard catch. So then
yeah.
it's like, yeah, I want to watch that. That's what I want to watch. So then they put that little clip out there and I watch it. Like it's, so that's
I mean,
the
there's active
NBA.
engagement and things like that too. There's like
Yeah.
the what is it like? Every team now has at least, if not one social media person, maybe two. And like that sounds like a stupid thing, and people would be like, "Oh, why would you have a job doing that?" And yeah, it's probably an intern most of the time, but still, like that active media engagement. You think people wouldn't like follow their NFL team that closely on Twitter or whatever, but they usually do. I mean, especially around like draft coverage and everything, everyone's like, taking in all the news they possibly can from that. The
I mean,
schedule, I mean, God, the schedule's commercialized. I was thinking about that, but that's another conversation.
yeah, but I mean, look at, for example, we did a whole segment on when freaking, before Justin Fields got drafted, when the Bears put that whole tweet out there of QB1 and it was Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
That was one tweet by a social media or that was one post by a social media service that the Bears run, and it lit a storm of people just posting videos and content on just that tweet. Like that's what the NHL and Major League Baseball is missing out on, is things like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, they're
it's
it's a very easy thing, and it's like I don't know if they're trying to convince people to let go of this idea that the content's so sacred they can't spread it around or they'll lose money, but they should recognize now that you are losing money because there's opportunity cost and it's not being used or taken. So
Yeah, I don't get it, but oh well. I mean, whatever. It's unfortunate that I love baseball and it's like slowly starting to lose the popularity that it once had, and it's its own fault. And so, I mean, I'll still watch, obviously, and I'm still going to be a fan, but it's sad. It's one of those where it's like it just, Manfred is just running the freaking baseball into the ground, and it needs to get new. And they need a new commissioner, is what it is. I mean, with the NBA, you know, um, Adam Silver took over. His name's escaping me. Can't remember who the previous commissioner is that basically led the entire NBA charge into becoming as popular as it is. And then Adam
yeah.
Silver has basically kind of continued that work. And that's what needs to happen, is you need to get somebody like that who's going to come in and basically understand that we need to start marketing and start advertising to a newer generation that, isn't into this whole, like I said, I love baseball, so I love all the ins and outs and everything like that, and I love, watching a pitcher's duel. But I also understand that to a common fan, a pitcher's duel is not entertaining, where for 3 hours there's one run scored and nothing happens. But if you sped the game up a little bit, and maybe you advertised a little bit, and you showed highlights, and you had the players talk, and you did like those, sports science type of videos that others,
Those are
others
awesome.
team, yeah, like those types of videos that other people do, where it's like, like in the NFL, where they're like, he hit a top speed of 22 miles per hour on this run. Like that
Yeah.
kind of stuff makes you go like, oh, that's an athlete. Like that's a real athlete that just did that. Like it's like I can't just go do that. And when you realize that you just can't go do that, it changes everything. So when, like, for a pitcher, for instance, if they actually like talked about like a pitcher's duel where a guy goes shutout 9 innings, throws 108 pitches. If they
Yeah.
actually talked about like, this is how much strain is on your arm for 108 pitches. This is what it takes every single pitch to throw this. Like, if they did that like at a regular basis and talked about those things, like people would realize like, oh, pitching's hard. Like that seems pretty hard to do. Like I appreciate now that this guy actually did that. Like that's the type of stuff that needs to happen, and that's why like you have an appreciation for all these things in the NFL and NBA, because when they show like like, oh, look at that dunk, like here's the vertical that he reached on that dunk, and here's the like. it just adds so much more to the understanding of like, yeah, this is a game that's hard, and like that's how it should be for the NHL and baseball. They just don't do that.
Yeah, and just to end on that note, just how far ahead the NFL is, it like I was thinking about this last week before all this stuff was announced because I forgot they even made a night out of it. But like the NFL gets that much coverage, and again, it's a
Yeah,
dead season right now. I get it, but
yeah.
um, yeah, it gets that much coverage off of announcing its schedule for the upcoming year. Like it literally gets that much news coverage. It goes ESPN, sports segments, people, us talking. Unfortunately, we are also the people who would be talking about it because it's kind of ridiculous if you think about it. But at the same time, it's like, oh, okay, now we got the schedule for the year. Let's break down what those matchups are going to look like. Like, what does it look like going in the bye week? Everything like that's a day
Well,
that they made a
and they
3 hour
also
special for.
and they're also smart too because what they did was is they what happened? The draft happened 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. So you know what they did is they let the draft happen. All the players went to where they were going to go. You know, the picks went in. Everybody talked about it for 2 weeks, hyped it up. After about 2 weeks, which is a reasonable amount of time, obviously, to talk about a topic such as the draft, it starts dying down a little bit once we've finally like gotten through all the shock and everything like that. As soon
Sure.
as it starts dying down, bam, here you go. Here's the schedule. Now you have to think about all those rookies and their matchups and all the other stuff. It's right on cue 2 weeks later. So
Yeah.
it's like it's the intelligence of planning out when these things like you don't have a ton of stuff happening in the off season, but pacing them out at the correct times is what makes the NFL the NFL, and that's why they're as popular as they are.
Yeah. It's just absolutely wild to come up to think about that, but don't worry because it gives us plenty of more things to still talk about. Like we
Oh
can
yeah.
go right into like we can go right into let's see what's my there we go. Let's go into this.
Yeah,
Um
this is so this is kind of a preface for the whole Aaron Rodgers fiasco is what I will call it. Um it's wild to me, by the way. I just want to point out that it to me it is wild that this whole thing is happening with Aaron Rodgers because it's funny because if you read between the lines of what actually happened, you hear that basically like obviously Aaron Rodgers disgruntled by everything that's happened. I heard that he basically had been told that they were going to trade him or they were looking to trade him maybe this offseason from the Packers. Like the Packers had told him that inside the organization, which obviously that would piss you off if you've been there for 16 years and they're like, we're going to trade you the year after drafting your replacement instead of giving you help.
sure.
So obviously multiple things that would piss you off entirely. Then what happened? Then, Adam Schefter comes out with a tweet that's like shocks everybody and is like, "Oh, Aaron Rodgers requested a trade." Everybody freaks out, that takes over draft night, all this is happening, panic. Then it comes out, Adam Schefter comes out, and it's funny because there wasn't like a ton of coverage about it. It was just like, "Oh, this happened." Then Adam Schefter comes out and is like, "Yeah, I didn't have any sources to base that tweet off. I just tweeted that out because was reading what had happened in the situation for the last 2 weeks." And it's like, okay, so you didn't have a source that told you directly that he had asked for a trade. That's what it was. That's what he's saying. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So, like the fact that that is all happening. So then now Aaron Rodgers looks like this bad guy because it wasn't really talked about that team had told him they were going to trade him, and then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is like, I want out. I want the GM fired. Well, turns out that he didn't actually say this to the organization. That this is all just coming from Adam Schefter trying to stir up some stuff because he thinks that this has been going on inside the organization. And obviously Adam Schefter breaks news all the time and is very good at his job. So of course there's going to be a couple things here and there that maybe aren't solely based on sources and are more opinion based on what he's been hearing. He doesn't have a specific source he could point to, but it's from what he's hearing, quote unquote. Um
But that's what we classify
Obviously,
as bad faith, though. The way that like, if you
yeah.
were just like, if I was to come out with a summary paper, like at a very convenient time that incriminated someone else, I was like, oh no no no, it's not new news. I was just like recapping it, and it's like, why would you recap it in a pivotal moment when like something important like a draft is happening? But yeah,
People like coming at Aaron Rodgers saying that Aaron Rodgers wanted this news out on draft night so that way it took away from the draft in the Packers draft. And I was like, like it just painting again him in a terrible picture when turns out Adam Schefter just decided to tweet it on draft night. He
yeah,
knew what he was doing. I mean, he knew what he was doing. It wasn't like it wasn't a shocker like, whoa, I didn't know this reaction was going to happen on draft
Yeah.
night. That one of the top quarterbacks
Oh,
that
was
just
there a
won the
draft on?
MVP.
Sorry, I was just reporting like I normally
Yeah,
would.
like it's just that's what I'm saying. Like he knows what he was doing, and then Aaron Rodgers looks like an a-hole the whole thing because Adam Schefter decided to come out with this tweet, and it's on draft night, and there's is Aaron Rodgers trying to take away from the organization's draft? And it's like, no, he's not. He's literally this is probably conversations that he's mentioned with friends and everything like that, and then all of a sudden now it's blown up as the story that he supposedly said, and he didn't, and now he looks like the a-hole, and the Packers look like oh, we're just trying to keep our quarterback happy and he just won't be happy. And it's like, no, you guys have been terrible trying to help him. Like, hey, remember when you guys were like a touchdown away from making the Super Bowl? And then you just decided the next year to best help your team is to get Devin Funches and then draft Aaron Rodgers' replacement. Genius.
Yeah.
Oh, and then not only that, but did you draft Aaron Rodgers' replacement? But then in the second round, you drafted a backup running back, and then in the third round, you drafted a backup tight end. Amazing,
Depth is
just a
important.
great, fantastic draft. So you want to, and yeah, AJ Dillon's a good player, and yeah, Dugara could be used at fullback and all that, but neither of those players are going to stop the 180 yards that the 49ers put on you the previous year in the NFC Championship that lost you the Super Bowl, lost you a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So, I don't understand why everybody suddenly is like, oh, Aaron Rodgers is the bad guy. I'm like, really? Have you been watching what the Packers have been doing with Aaron Rodgers? They basically have been giving him, like he said, Devontae Adams, and then a whole litany of wide receivers that you're like, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know what his name is, but he's out there. Like,
Like
and
MVS or whatever. I forget what his name
yeah,
is.
and then people are like, MVS is a pretty good wide receiver. You see his catches and everything, and I'm like, okay, well, he also has Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball. So like, obviously, if Mahomes was throwing like me the ball, I'm gonna look like a better wide receiver than if Trubisky was throwing me the ball. So I mean, like, what are we saying here? So that's why I'm just like, it's annoying. The whole fiasco is annoying. He's gonna be a Packer next year. He's still gonna be pissed off with the organization. That's just how they're gonna coexist until they finally boot him out at the end of this contract. And then the funny news that I heard too was that he supposedly there was a source that said that he had been offered by the Packers the largest contract in NFL history that would trump Mahomes' contract in like value as far as like per year salary and everything. And I was like, that can't be true. So like it's really stupid. And the whole fiasco is annoying. And he's gonna be a Packer. He's gonna be pissed off at the organization. It's the way that it's gonna be every year until his contract's up, and then Jordan Love's gonna take over and do absolutely nothing for the next 20 years. So
Of
that's
course.
it's an incredible, incredible time to be alive now. But as a Packers fan. Yeah. So
Oh yeah, and what
uh,
about Dank? Sorry, just for some reason chat didn't refresh until I pulled it up on this side. You got Cardinals and Bears tickets though. I forget, is
I,
that the away game or is that at Soldier
oh,
Field?
we'll talk about that in a moment because we'll talk. I have a lot of Bears stuff that I actually want to talk about because there's been some interesting things that I thought was
Sure.
wanted to talk about. So we'll get to that in a minute. But yes, it is literally like throwing gasoline on a freaking fire and then going, "Oh, it's on fire!" And you're like, "Yeah, it's on fire, genius!" Like that's what do you think you've been doing for the last 3 years? Like, how many times are you gonna almost make the Super Bowl and then do absolutely nothing to improve the team the next year? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like the Packers this year, what did they do? They have a terrible corner in Kevin King who basically blew them the NFC Championship or helped blow the NFC Championship. Remember how many times we highlighted him getting just
Oh yeah.
destroyed? Like that's
Check out the video on YouTube.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Check out the video of us just talking about Kevin King getting blown by every freaking play. But anyways, Kevin King signed back to the team. And then you know what happens is um, yeah, Kevin King signed back to the team, and then they draft Stokes in the first round, basically as Kevin King's replacement or to compete with him. And it's one of those where I just go like okay, so you got a player to help improve your corner. That's fine. Like, oh, I'm okay with that. If he ends up being a good corner, that's a great pick. But then after that, they got Myers from Ohio State to replace their center. You replace the center that you lost. Like you lost Corey Lindsey, who was a really good center, and you replaced them with a young rookie who's obviously not going to be as good as Corey Lindsey. So you basically just went like you had +2 and then you went down to +1. So like, You know, that's so like that's really not like it's not like you drafted or filled a need. You didn't fill a need, you filled a need you made, which is not the same as like, you know, hey, we re-signed all of our players and then we filled a couple of needs we had too. Like that's not the same thing when you lose one of your best players on an offensive line and then you replace him with a rookie who's obviously not as good right now, at least. You know, hopefully you think he is, hope can be, but he's not right now. So, you know, you're down basically.
Yeah.
That's I don't so that's my whole thing. I don't Packers are just the Packers and they're just like I said, they're gonna be Aaron Rodgers is gonna be there next year. They're gonna be really good next year. They're probably gonna make it far into the playoffs, and then they're probably not gonna make the Super Bowl, and we're gonna be back to square one same time next year. See you guys there.
Yeah.
Like I just, you know, it's that's the way it's gonna go. That's the way it's gone the last couple of years, and they're just basically gonna waste the last few years that Aaron Rodgers has at his peak, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunate, but it hurts. This is what the Justin Fields era will start to look like.
yeah. So
Hopefully.
all right. Well, transitioning into the schedule obviously is being released that we just talked about. So NFL week 1 games are released. I is the NFL like trying to subtly manipulate the Bears here with like the week 1 prime time? Like is it like, hey,
Oh yeah.
you guys really aren't going to pump out Andy Dalton on prime time television on game 1. Are you really like really? Are you guys going to? Like now I feel like the Bears are like, "Oh crap, now we got to start Justin Fields." Like he's got to play in prime time. Like can you imagine how disappointing this prime time game is going to be if Andy Dalton trots out there on the field? Like
Oh
it's
yeah.
just like what like you have the whole like, you know, obviously it's the Rams. So you have the whole with what's his name? The quarterback. What can't I think of his name?
Stafford.
Stafford. You have Matthew Stafford coming back, you know, to face the Bears again after getting traded to a much better team now. And then, you know, that's gonna happen where, you know, you're suddenly just going to, you know, apparently act like you know, the Bears are gonna maybe start Justin Fields, and that's why this game's gonna be entertaining. Or are we just gonna trot Andy Dalton out, probably lose the game, and great, we're on primetime television losing a game with Andy Dalton as our quarterback. Like it's just it doesn't, you know, it's one of those where I'm just like, I don't know what the NFL's doing. Like
It's
out of
well,
all the
it's actually a
games,
big brain move, right? Because if they lose and have Andy Dalton on the national stage, it's like, wow, they really should have them start Justin Fields. Which, guess what? The Bears have plenty more primetime games the rest of the season for him to still start. So it's like, hey, you could start him early and we could just be happy straight off the bat and we get our ratings either way. Or he could lose and then he could be started earlier. Or he wins and then the Bears are like, wow, he's going to be really, or Justin Fields is going to be really good on this team when they start. They just won a game with Andy Dalton. There's literally no way for them to lose, and I feel like that's why they picked that as the move.
well, the
Watch it
funny
gets
thing
flexed
is
mid-game. Yeah, exactly.
honestly, well, the funny thing about the game is that like um if you look at the regular season for the Bears, like the rest of the season games, we have the week 10 bye, which is like a perfect bye. It's literally 9 games after like 9 games into the season, we have a bye, and then we have 8 weeks left of the season, which is like fantastic, right? And then dead center, get a nice break. And then after that, we have like 2 primetime games on Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football back to back from the Packers and the um the Vikings. And so it's one of those where I'm like, okay, that was actually intelligent because you have the Packers and the Vikings later in the season, both in your obviously interdivision, you know, rivals playing against each or against the Bears on primetime television. And at that point, you're assuming Justin Fields is starting. Unless Andy Dalton's doing really well, which in that case, then guess what? Andy Dalton's doing really well, and it's still a good primetime game. So, like, that was smart scheduling. But then putting them opening game, like, first day is just a weird, like, it's just odd. Like, why wouldn't you have chosen, like, you know, like, made the Jags play somebody and have Trevor Lawrence opening day, Sunday Night Football? Like, let's see the number 1 overall draft pick rookie everybody's been talking about for 3 years
Well,
play.
because the Jaguars are
Like,
still a
no.
bad team, though. They still went 1 and
Yeah, but
15.
you could put them against and like you could do Jags Colts. Like, wouldn't you be entertained to watch like, oh, I want to see how Carson
No,
Wentz does with the Colts against the
no.
Jacksonville. Like I would. I'd be excited. I'd be like, oh, I want to see how Carson Wentz is going to be with the Colts, and I also want to see how freaking Trevor Lawrence is going to be with the Jags.
I mean, you could do that. I mean, I don't know what the scheduling. I remember the scheduling for like how they normally do it anyways. I'm not sure how that would work out, but like the thing with LA too is that they also want to flex their new stadium that they just never got to use, never got to put fans in. So that's like number one. I could see why they put the Rams there. So let's just assume the Rams are getting the Week 1 game regardless because of that. Like like just right out the gate.
Yeah.
So who do you put
Okay.
against them? I don't
Against
know
the
who's in
Rams?
their pool. Like the pool that they switch off of like division and then you play, whatever ranked division from last year or whatever. But I mean, the Bears obviously fell into there, and the NFC North is going to have to face the Rams division. Can't remember what it is exactly, but I
With the
think of the
Cardinals
available
fan in chat.
matchups. Yeah, exactly, Cardinals fan. And I think of the available matchups, that one probably made the most sense because again, Chicago's third biggest media market as well, with LA. So like, again, could see where they're coming from with that. But yeah, I agree. It's kind of weird, especially when you don't have like a bona fide starter star. Like if Justin Fields doesn't start, it's kind of like, yeah, it was good, but we're still gonna watch anyways. Really, that's what it comes down to. The Bears
Yeah.
fans are still gonna be crazy excited.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I just, it's one of those where I'm like, I'm gonna be like, I'm excited for the season, but I'm excited because obviously Justin Fields. Like, I could really care less about, um, I could really care less about Andy Dalton starting these games. Like, I know Andy Dalton's a bridge quarterback, so any success he has, like, I could care less. Like, he could bomb all, he if he plays 5 games, he could lose all 5. I could care less.
Yeah,
I really like. I'll be there to watch the games and see how everybody else does, but I'm going to care less until Justin Fields starts. The moment Justin Fields starts is when the season starts for us because that's like our future.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe the NFL is thinking that Justin Fields will win the job in training camp and off seasons, which he very well could, and then he ends up starting day one.
And that's a hell of a start against the Rams line. Like
Well, yeah,
that, what a
against
great test to see if like the whole Jenkins left tackle thing is going to work out, along with like Borum or Ifedi,
yeah,
anyone
but
else.
the other thing too is people are going to be a little like people are going to overblow that. Like like if Tevin Jenkins got beat on that game, let's say Tevin Jenkins like goes out and has like a bad game and gets beat a bunch. Like, what are you gonna say? Like, oh, he got beat by Aaron Donald and that
Yeah,
defensive
really.
line when he's a freaking rookie. Like, it's he's a rookie. He's not gonna be this. He's like, no offense to Tevin Jenkins, he's not Quentin Nelson. Quentin Nelson was a perennial All Pro the moment he stepped on the field. It's just especially left tackle position. It's very difficult to develop into left tackle position, and he's got a little bit of an uphill battle in the pass protection, anyways, as far as developing that way. So if Tevin Jenkins doesn't do well against them, I could care less. But I guarantee people are going to overblow that. That's why I'm like, I wish that we didn't have any primetime games the first like 8 games of the season because we really need the first 8 games of the season to like transition to Justin Fields and then just have like everybody get experience and get timing and stuff like that. Like that's why like I'm way more intrigued for the primetime games against the Vikings and Packers later in the season because at that point the rookies have had time to develop in the offense. I'm assuming if Andy Dalton's Andy Dalton, which I think he's going to be, I'm assuming Justin Fields takes over by that point. So then obviously you're going to see it, him, and he's going to have the timing down with his receivers. So like those primetime games against the Packers and Vikings are going to be way more entertaining than this primetime game. So I don't. It's just it's whatever. I'm obviously going to sit on the couch and watch it, but it's just I don't really know if we should have started the season out with that. Probably not the greatest, with our QB1 situation going on with Andy Dalton. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, a couple other Bears things I wanted to talk about before we move on. I did find it funny, by the way. I don't know if this is 100% true. I'd have to look at the schedule again, but I saw that the Bears are playing the Bills in week 2 of the preseason. I don't know if you saw this, which
Oh,
which basically means that when the backups come in for the other 3 quarters, the backups are going to be Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky.
yes, that's
How
funny.
how how ridiculous is that going to be for a freaking preseason game where Mitch is going to come back and have to play basically against Justin Fields and all of our backups and everything like that. Like it's going to
That's
be it's
rude,
just
honestly. There's no way they do that, right?
it's
They just like
that's what's
throw them
happening.
out there.
You don't think the NFL is going to do that? You don't think the NFL wants that to happen? Like
Yeah.
We, like that's how it's gonna go because the um week two the starters only play like what, one quarter and a half. So
Yeah.
that means that basically the other 2.5 quarters are gonna be Justin Fields probably. So and then obviously Mitch Trubisky's the backup to Josh Allen. So the moment Josh Allen's taken out, Mitch Trubisky's coming in. So it's gonna be Trubisky versus Justin Fields for like
Must
two and
see
a half quarters.
TV.
I might actually watch a preseason game, Dylan.
Hmm.
I probably will. If I know that Justin Fields is going to go against freaking Mitch Trubisky in a preseason game,
Oh, you
you
were gonna
bet
watch
your.
it regardless if Justin Fields is out there, anyways.
Oh yeah, the moment Justin Fields steps on the field, I'm watching. So, but
Yeah.
I just
That.
thought that was hilarious. I saw that was like a little thing that the NFL did. Obviously during the regular season, the Bills and Mitch Trubisky coming back to Chicago doesn't mean anything, but preseason, he's going to play.
Yeah, right. I know. I like some guy probably thought that up and he thought he was real clever for it. So I'm
Oh,
going with it.
I know
Over
that
under
some.
over under Bears fans finding a way to mispronounce Fields. Well, we already had Trubinsky, so for the longest time that one never really went away. I mean, yeah. I mean, how do
I
you
can't.
say it wrong?
I can't wait for Justin Fields to get on the
Oh,
field.
there it is. Okay, yeah. I couldn't think of how do you say Fields wrong. Fields, yeah. McGowan, yeah. Josh McGowan.
Yeah, I can't. I
Classic
just
time.
can't. I can't wait for Justin Fields. It's gonna be so good.
That's
You
like
know,
you have
like
no excuse, honestly, to get
like
that one
that kid
wrong.
out of. Yeah, I'm just excited for that kid that we drafted out of University of Ohio. Just
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, I totally see it coming. Unfortunate, but that is the way that we
Yep.
are.
Yep. But anyways,
I hope he
so that
does
was
well.
more.
By the way, before you move on for that, I like. What if he actually has legitimate improvement in case of a Josh Allen injury at some point?
Well,
Obviously don't want that.
He's gonna play in an offense that fits him better. So he's already going to look better if they use him. If they use him like they use Josh Allen, because basically Josh Allen is used a lot as a runner as well as obviously Josh Runner makes a lot of reads, but that offense at its simplest core is what Mitch Trubisky should be running anyways, and should have been running in Chicago. He's obviously Mitch Trubisky's not a good quarterback. We all know that, but like the best he can be is in that type of offense. So at the very least, that's the offense he should be running. So he should at least look a little bit better.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think so. I think so.
but yeah. So, anyways, other than that, the other topic that I wanted to cover real quick, or actually two things I want to cover. One, this is kind of a little thing I just want to mention. I did see that, by the way, that the Bears had been trying to trade Nick Foles the entire time, like this entire offseason, nobody's bit.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely hilarious to me just because, like, yeah, nobody wants Nick Foles. What do you like? Why? Why would they want Nick Foles?
Right.
Like, I thought I heard something hilarious that was like, what if the Packers get Nick Foles? And I was like, dear God, please don't make that happen. So,
Well, they got
but
Blake
and
Bortles now. It's fine.
yeah, right. So, and then the other thing too that I thought was funny is that I want to say, well, actually not funny. It's more about the offense and how excited I am about it. I am actually hyped for Matt Nagy to run his offense finally. And if you've noticed, we've started becoming the Legion of Zoom, and literally every player on the Bears is like a freaking track star. Like it's our slowest guy is David Montgomery. And David Montgomery is like he's slower for a running back, but he's not that slow. Like, and that's incredible. Like, I can't wait for that to happen. I mean, freaking, we have Godwin who ran a 4.27. We have Bird who ran a 4.28. We have Mooney who ran a 4.38. We have uh Miller who ran a 4.38. I think Robinson ran like a 4.4,
Yeah, he's
and
the
then I think
slowest by far, which is crazy.
or 4.5 or something like that. Yeah. And then Montgomery ran like a 4.6, and then Tariq Cohen ran like a 4.4. And I was like, this is incredible. I was like, I'm all for Matt Nagy finally running his offense. And that's what it is. That's why he got Godwin. That's why he got Bird. That's why he has like that's why, we drafted Mooney. Like this is our offense. This is the offense he's been wanting to run for the longest time. He just can't because he had Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. So like I'm excited to what it looks like in person. Um, ooh, You know what's funny is I would be interested because, and I've seen your tweets about Jordan Hicks too. I feel like Jordan Hicks would be an upgrade over Trevathan, so I would be down for that. Maybe you could just swap. You could take Trevathan off of us. We'll take Hicks. A little bit of an upgrade for us, downgrade for you, but we figure it out. Um,
Yeah.
we'll give you like a
Good
future
trade.
six. Exactly. Uh, but anyways, yeah, no, I'm excited for Matt Nagy to finally, yeah, you're probably not getting a third or fourth in that. So probably, probably more like a fifth or a sixth, future fifth or sixth in that deal. But anyways, yeah, so I'm excited for Matt Nagy to finally run his offense. I'm excited for there to finally be speedsters, and then also for Matt Nagy to get a quarterback that can actually run it effectively. It's gonna be great. I'm excited. That's another thing I'm super excited about for the Bears.
I think we also talk about how Nagy's going on a media blitz ever since they drafted Justin Fields. Like I literally was looking up Twitter if you heard that in the background video autoplayed, but I think he jumped on like another interview on NFL Network. Like he's been literally on every network, like everywhere. Like, hey, did you know we got Justin Fields? Like, please don't fire me. We got
Well,
Justin Fields. It's so cool, man.
Well, to be honest, like I'm at a point now as a Bears fan with everything that's happened. Now that I've sat back and everything's happened, I am at a point now where I'm okay with Matt Nagy being here for another year or two.
Yeah.
At least 2 years. I'm fine with him being for 2 years. Um, just to develop the offense and develop Fields. I think he can. At least, it's to be seen, obviously. He should have there were some things obviously that he should have done. He should have used Trubisky better. He should have tried to not force Trubisky for 4 years to be a freaking pocket passer. He should utilize players correctly in the way that they should be utilized. For example, not running Tariq Cohen up the freaking middle for, majority of Tariq Cohen's time. And then also, moving Cordell Patterson as like a wide receiver out, that type of stuff doesn't work. That's what should have been, fixed in his offense a long time ago and needs to. Now, if that stuff is improved, I think Matt Nagy should get at least 2 years to develop. And then after 2 years, if he hasn't succeeded, kick him out, get a new coach in there that can make Justin Fields successful in the offense. Obviously, this is a 3-year projection, so we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I'm Pace is the one that's on the hot seat for me. Like if anybody's getting fired this next offseason, if the season doesn't go spectacularly well, it's Pace because Pace is the one that's been there longer. He's the one that's had this. He's the one that drafted Trubisky and traded up for him. It was his guy. It wasn't Matt Nagy's guy. If you go watch Matt Nagy's scouting of all three quarterbacks, Matt Nagy had Trubisky number 3 on his list, behind Deshaun Watson at 2 and Mahomes at 1. So obviously Matt Nagy thought he was a good quarterback, but didn't think he was good enough to be number 2 overall. So right off the bat, the fact that Matt Nagy, evaluated the quarterbacks this year and decided Justin Fields was his guy, and then when Justin Fields started falling, he, obviously they jumped on the opportunity and took him. So that's where I'm at with them, as I just want to see how this goes for the next 2 years. I think Matt Nagy should get 2 years. Pace is the one though that I think he should be on the hot seat. He should almost be like a guarantee fire next year, unless we make the playoffs and win a playoff game, he should just be fired next year.
That seems fair at this point. Yeah.
I'm tired of making the playoffs at like 8-8 and losing in the first game. Like we've run that back, quite a few times in our entirety of being Bears fans. Let's just, finally either go for it or don't. And if we don't, and you suck again for the 8th year in a row, then we got to get out of it. You got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
No, I like I said, yeah, I'm more okay with Nagy staying a little bit longer now, even despite some of the things that seemed unforgivable during the season. But
yeah,
we're just gonna pretend it's you could totally run it back, and I mean they're gonna get a lot of freebies, right, from COVID and everything. Like Eddie Goldman coming back is huge.
oh yeah, that's
I
massive. We
think we
couldn't
also,
stop a run to save our lives.
yeah, and that's going to have a huge impact everywhere. Obviously, there's other cuts to make up for that, like Kyle Fuller being gone and whatever else. But um, I don't know. It's a pretty good situation to be in. I feel like there's only a couple areas that can really move players around, but otherwise, there's no room to move, which is a good and bad thing at the same time because it forces you to work with what you have. But yeah, and
Well,
I'd be fine with him coming back for a little while longer. There were parts of the season where they should have fallen apart and the team should have given up, and they never did, which was probably the most important thing.
yeah, and the other thing too is when you're talking about moving parts and everything and people coming back and we got to do with what we have. What we have is obviously a lot better than most teams. I mean, you have Khalil Mack as a premier pass rusher. Robert Quinn with his whole injury thing that came out and all that news. Maybe Robert Quinn's back to at least somewhat of his old self this year and produces enough to be, reasonable starter, which would help obviously Mack on the other side. You got Akeem Hicks come back healthy. Then you have Eddie Goldman coming back healthy, who we couldn't stop the run to save our lives the moment Akeem Hicks went out, and that's because nobody we lost. Those are our two best run stoppers. Is we have Eddie Goldman, who's a fantastic nose tackle, who's run stopper, and then you have Akeem Hicks, who's a good pass rusher, but he's also a great run stopper.
Yeah.
Both those players being out, obviously we couldn't stop the run to save our lives. That's what happened. So getting both those players back healthy, Bilal Nichols can finally kick out from nose tackle and become just a regular defensive tackle, which is what he should be. In a 3-4 defensive end scheme, he should be a 3-4 defensive end, not a nose tackle. So him last year having a down year, it's I whatever, I chalk it up to, listen buddy, we tried to force you into a situation and a position that you shouldn't have been in, so this year you can finally go back to where you should be, which is where you were producing and developing well. And then you at linebacker, you have obviously, like I said, you have Roquan Smith, who's playing at an all pro level. You have Trevathan when he's healthy, is there. You brought back Christian Jones, who can contribute, at least as far as depth goes, and with Trevathan's injury status and all that, I feel comfortable with Christian Jones stepping in. And then you also brought in Atoa or Atochoa or whatever his name is, Jeremiah from the Broncos. He'll be a good depth pass rusher. Same with Travis Gibson getting finally some playing time and developing a little bit better this year too as the depth pass rusher. Then you go to the secondary. Yeah, Trufont's a downgrade over Kyle Fuller, but it's one of those where, you have Jalen Johnson who's still growing. They think Vildor and Shelley can split time at slot, and both one of those two will develop into a good slot corner, which I think they could. And then you have obviously Eddie Jackson who can play. If he goes back to the old Eddie Jackson, or is at least a little bit more like the old Eddie Jackson, more so than he was last year, then that's obviously an improvement right there. And let alone he's still, obviously a great safety in this league. And then obviously bringing back Tayshaun Gibson, who knows the defense now and has had a year of working with everybody inside that defense. And then you also have Desai coming up as a new defensive coordinator, who a lot of people think was, he was going to get a defensive coordinator job soon because he was an up and coming, special or position specialist. So finally, with all that, to me, makes 100% sense, for him to come in and take over that defense. And then at offense, you have, Allen Robinson, who should be a top 5 wide receiver. It just he doesn't have that stats and everything that go with it because he isn't a good quarterback to throw to him. Darnell Mooney is developing. He's got another year under his belt of getting in the weight room, perfecting his route running ability, things like that, getting the offense. Then you obviously are bringing in, speedsters, like I said, like Godwin, Bird. You have Miller, who will now be a depth wide receiver rather than a vital part of your offense, which is good. And then you have, hopefully guys like Riley Ridley and stuff, developing a little bit or finally getting some playing time over, the guys that decide to punch like the same dude. And then you get Cole Kmet, another year of Cole Kmet developing.
Which sorry, I was muted. I saw something that came up that he played with Justin Fields for like, what was it, 1 year before he transferred? I think Riley Ridley. There was like a touchdown pass thrown to
Yeah,
him,
in
and
Georgia.
okay, yeah, I
Yes.
didn't know that. That was cool.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of that connection, and then obviously you have Cole Kmet, another year of developing and everything like that, and he started looking good at towards the end of the season. It's just he needed to actually get snaps and develop. So you have that coming in. Then you get Tariq Cohen back, which is huge because if Matt Nagy's finally going to run his offense the way he wants to run it, then obviously Cohen's going to be a big part of that as far as hopefully being in the slot more, as well as a good outside threat as far as the running back goes. Then you have Montgomery, who's of course Montgomery, and is going to be, good nonetheless. So you have all the pieces there that are right for the picking to have a good team. It's just, last year you didn't have a quarterback. So then your defense is pissed off because they're spending half the game. You're 70% of the game on the field rather than, the way that it should be, which is that your offense is picking up their slack on days when they're down, or their offense is at least contributing enough to where the defense isn't out there every freaking, drive because you go three and out.
Yeah.
So like that's the balance that'll happen. You'll see guys get excited on defense because they'll actually have a quarterback that they believe in. Once Justin Fields takes over and starts, performing like he should. So that's all those things make me excited about the team. Whereas, and that's the thing. That's what getting a quarterback does for you. Getting a quarterback means that I can be excited about the team because all of these things become important now that you actually have a quarterback that you believe can become a franchise guy.
Yeah. I
So.
think it is a game changer as well, and we could probably just briefly cover this as more of not a courtesy, but yeah, Charles Leno
Oh,
signed the 1 year deal, $5 million,
yeah, with the
WFT.
Washington. I'm really, obviously with Charles Leno, I'm really glad that he got a job. We've talked about the offensive line not being very good, and Charles Leno's not spectacular, but I mean, he's also a seventh round pick. He was literally, if you read his tweet, thanking the Bears, he talks about how he was literally, he bought an air mattress from Walmart and lived on Kyle Long's, living room floor until he knew that he had a spot on the team. So obviously the city of Chicago should really thank Charles Leno for everything he did, especially because, we can't blame Charles Leno for, Ryan Pace not caring enough about the offensive line to actually improve it every year. So, like, I can't blame Charles Leno for doing that. He came in, played the best he can. He's even an undersized left tackle too, which is another thing too that people need to understand is he's 6'3", like 300 pounds. Like he's undersized for a tackle position. So being able to do what he did for however long he did as consistently as he did, being a seventh rounder,
Yeah.
I give him all the props, and I wish him the most success he can have with Washington. And I honestly think that that's a good spot for him to land because it's an up and coming exciting team which is up for a good draft pick and quarterback next year. And you plug in a good quarterback in that team with all the weapons that they've added and everything, I think that team's going to be really good moving forward. And I would love for Charles Leno to, earn himself an extended contract there. And I wish him all the best.
Yeah, 2014 seventh round draft pick, 93 consecutive starts in the past 7 teams with the same team, the Bears, obviously. And yeah, that's a pretty good Iron Man streak going on there. Um,
Yeah. Like I
Definitely didn't
said,
have
you
to worry
can't.
about that position for the longest time, at least having someone show up for sure.
Yeah, and like I said, he wasn't the best, but he was also a seventh rounder and he was undersized. So, like, really, if Charles Leno was developed at a guard position, I bet you his career is way different because I bet you he's way more successful. It's just, we needed him at tackle. We put him at tackle. He was a seventh round pick. And he did his job very well and as long as he did it, we thank him for his service. And like I said, I wish him nothing but the best, moving forward.
Yeah. Sorry, I was just replying that one of our viewers asked if we crashed. I believe we're still up. I could still see myself um, looking like we're updating
Oh
live,
boy.
so that was just a technical thing to look at. Um, right, let me go to also
Yeah,
the Tebow, the
another
Tebow.
interesting topic because this is blowing up all over. I I don't know. So one thing I will say, I think my first reaction when I heard this news was, it's better late than never. I guess is what I would say because like Tim Tebow from the moment he came in the NFL should have been a fullback tight end hybrid, and he would have been incredibly successful at that position because that's what he should have been. He needs to be a fullback tight end. He would have developed his catching ability, and he would have been a great fullback tight end in this entire, NFL scheme. He would have been like a Kyle Juszczyk. So the fact that he wasn't utilized that and he tried his best to become a quarterback, I don't, that I don't get. So it was just kind of, it's one of those where he tried his best to become a quarterback and never succeeded. Should have switched earlier in his career to a fullback tight end, but I guess better late than never. Here we are. Now, the one thing I will say is I kind of agree with people in saying that it's ridiculous that he's getting a chance before a guy like Colin Kaepernick ever got one. Yeah, listen, it's the NFL. We all know that there is some hardcore blackballing that was happening with Colin Kaepernick. We all know that was happening. It's unfortunate and wish that it wasn't happening, but situations are different in everything, and it's one of those where, Tim Tebow knows Urban Meyer. Obviously, Urban Meyer, Tim Tebow basically made Urban Meyer a lot of money in his college career, being as successful as he was because of the two championships he won with him. So,
Oh, so he was his
it's
head coach. I didn't know this.
yeah,
Okay.
he was his head coach in Florida
Okay.
when he won both the national championships and the Heisman. He was the head coach. So that's why he's coming into the Jaguars, is because Urban Meyer is now running the Jaguars basically, and he wants his guy. That's why if you looked at all the acquisitions the Jaguars made, like they're literally like they signed, an ex Ohio State wide receiver. They signed an ex running back from Ohio State. They signed, now they're getting Tim Tebow from his Florida days when he was coaching. So he's literally just running it back with a bunch of players that he knows from his college days. And so it's not surprising that Tim Tebow was one of the people that got a chance to do that. Now, will Tim Tebow be successful? I don't know. I don't know. If he can learn how to catch the ball, yeah, then he will. I don't know how they're gonna utilize him. Like, I don't know if he's going to be out there as a tight end running routes catching the ball, or if he's gonna be used more of a blocking, fullback type of tight end. I don't really know. It's one of those where we just have to see what their plan is for him. And if he makes the roster, he makes the
Yeah.
53-man roster the day one. Obviously that's a big what if. Apparently, I know I listened to an interview with Urban Meyer where basically he was trying to dispel um stories out there that he was spending too much time evaluating Tebow rather than like actually running the organization. And he tried to dispel that basically by saying that the meetings that had happened between the Jaguars and Tim Tebow were separate, and he had not gone to those meetings. They were his people that had gone there and then reported back to him. That's what he tried to say. Whether that's true or not in its capacity, who knows how much time he was spending trying to get Tebow there. They did multiple workouts with Tim Tebow, so I know it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting because usually that's not the case. So obviously there's some favoritism going on there. It's one of those where, like I said, if Tim Tebow's utilized correctly and is able to learn what he needs to learn, then I think he'll be a good player in the position. It's just a little too it's like I said, better late than never, but like also very close to being very too late
Yeah.
because he's 33 years old and your athleticism, I don't care who you are, starts to go. And it's one of those where he's trying to now, bank off of his athleticism and him just being a football player. It's one of those where it could be successful. It also could be absolutely terrible and he doesn't even make the roster. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think about this whole signing?
I thought it was funny that people were usually bringing up like, oh, he's taking away a bunch of like roster time from other tight ends, and I was like, oh, who are the tight ends on the Jaguars at the same
Yeah,
time?
they're not good. One of them's from Illinois State, so shout out to him, Shaughnessy. But obviously they're not fantastic. I think their tight ends last year combined for like 300 yards receiving. So like
I think Tyler
I'm
Eifert was there too. I don't think he's re-signed, but I think he was
yeah, but did
there.
he even play? Like I don't even remember him being on the team or like even playing or existing. So I don't, who knows? But
Yeah.
like I said, it's one of those where if Tim Tebow can actually catch the ball and run some routes, he'll play and he'll be fine. I just don't know if he can do that at 33 years old. So we'll see.
Yeah, if his body can even hold up.
Yeah, I know. It's a fun, interesting type, why offenses just use six offensive lines and save a roster spot. Yeah, I get, why is because it's always, what it is it's always the threat of something happening. Having a tight end out there as the extra offensive line blocker, even if he's a blocking tight end and most people know that, it's one of those where like he could run out and catch a pass, and that's the threat of that is what adds the dynamic where defenses at some point have to honor that because at some point those guys are usually going to be used in routes, and when that happens, if they break open, on a play, it's the same concept of, well, then now we have to watch him and we have to be on, he keeps the defense honest, is what I'm trying to say, basically. It's like, throwing Tariq Cohen out there and having him block like once a game or twice a game on passing plays, or having him run up the middle once or twice a game. You do that, yeah, it doesn't work because it's Tariq Cohen, he's 5'6", he shouldn't run up the middle. But if you only do it a couple times a game, there's the threat that he could. Defenses have to honor that. So if you catch a linebacker slightly hesitating on seeing Tariq Cohen, fake up the middle and go outside, if he even slightly hesitates on that fake up the middle, then Tariq Cohen's getting outside of him, and that's yards. That's positive yards that the offense will get. So it's always the threat is what happens, and that's why blocking tight ends are tight ends and not offensive linemen or extra offensive linemen. It's because there's the threat they could still go out and catch a pass.
Yeah.
So
Okay, and then we'll just I think I'm looking through what other points we had to go over. I think that covered most of the NFL stuff. Just end
two
on two
yeah,
more.
two more things. This and then the Metcalf stuff I want to talk about in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Um, so you can put that up. Yeah. So we're going to talk about Deshaun Watson real quick. I just want to briefly mention this so you can go ahead and get the other thing lined up. But I just want to mention I heard that Deshaun Watson is starting to or trying to basically what's it called
Settle.
settle.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to settle with his accusers. Um, it's one of those where I've heard that teams are still interested. Not surprising. If any player is good in the NFL, it's one of those where it doesn't matter what they've done in their past. Like people can say all they want about Ray Rice, knocking his wife out, dragging her onto a thing and being on a video. But if Ray Rice was running for 5 yards a carry and averaging 120 yards rushing every game, he's gonna have a
Yeah.
job. It's unfortunate that that's the way that happens in sports, but he's gonna have a job. Like that's just the way it goes. Why was
I forget the
what's his
saying, but I think it's like like if like Hannibal Lecter ran a 4.2 or something, he would be in the NFL.
yeah, 100%, 100%. Teams would figure it out. They'd be
Uh,
that's why what's his face, the wide receiver for Seattle that got suspended an entire year for smoking weed and everything like that, and had
Percy
all those
Harvin?
issues. No, it
Oh,
wasn't
Josh
Percy
Gordon.
Harvin. Yeah, Gordon. Like, why do you think Josh Gordon was still on a roster over and over again? Like, it's literally because of the simple fact that he could play a wide receiver position very well, and that's all it was. That's the only reason why he was on a roster still, despite the fact that he hadn't played a game, in who knows how long. So it's one of those where I'm not surprised that teams are interested still in Deshaun Watson because teams are like, well, listen, we can clean that up. We can act like it didn't happen,
Yeah.
and then he'll play like 10 years here and we'll have a great quarterback. And that's what teams are thinking.
Yeah.
So,
We'll look like geniuses in the end. Trust us.
exactly. Well, because 10 years down the road, if, Deshaun Watson wins you 2 Super Bowls, how often are you going to think about his accusers versus the 2 Super Bowls? I mean, that's
Like,
kind
look
of,
at the Steelers.
you know, yeah, exactly,
People are
exactly,
like,
Dylan.
wow, the
That's
Steelers are very good. That's what you
yeah,
mainly hear.
exactly. So, not to sound funny, but that's just the way that sports are is, it doesn't matter as long as you're talented. And it's unfortunate. Wish that people would just get punished and have to deal with those punishments by not being able to do what they love and makes them millions of dollars, but it's not the world we live in. So, he's going to play, and not shocking that teams are interested.
Yeah.
So,
And in more happy news then, or interesting,
yes.
I guess.
So this is something that I wanted to talk about. And the reason why I wanted to talk about it is from the angle that I don't think that this is such a crazy thing that he came in ninth. Like people were like I don't know if did you see anything about this race or do you know anything about this or what he was trying to do or
I read that he came in like amongst other track stars. I think he beat out a soccer guy, but he was like pretty close with other people without training. The most important thing, I think, besides his actual placement, was that I think he was still within like what point one, point two, or something of other track
yes.
stars, while having 40 pounds on them.
Yeah, 40 pounds and being like, 6 inches taller than every single one of them. Like
Yeah,
so yeah, so people were overblowing this because people were talking about yes for that. People were overblowing it and talking about how like, oh, but did you see that he actually placed ninth and he came in last place? And it's like, yeah, but do you understand that that man ran a 10.36 and he had literally decided like a couple weeks he was going to do this race and then he was like, I'm just going to train for a couple weeks and I'll hop out there with a bunch of guys trying to qualify for the freaking Olympics.
Yeah.
and he's like, oh, that guy, he's like 5'8", a buck 60. He's like, I'm 6'4", 240. I could probably keep up with him. Like that's the insanity that people need to realize. Like, I don't care that he came in ninth. The fact that he was that close, like if he got blown out in the race and like didn't run as well, whatever. Then I'm like, okay, well, yeah, obviously he shouldn't have been in the race. But the fact that he was right there and like, yeah, he did die out a little bit. He hasn't trained in the 100-meter dash. Like it's not like he spent months and years training for this race. So like the fact that he almost beat out or almost came close to beating out people that have been training for this their whole lives is insane. And I don't understand why people are like talking about it as like, see, this is, this is NFL players should stay in their lane. And Olympians are like upset. And I'm like, listen, it just goes to show that athletes are athletes. If, obviously Aaron Donald, if Aaron Donald was in a freaking wrestling competition or weightlifting competition in the Olympics, he's going to do pretty well. He's an athlete. He lifts weights. That's what he does. Like, I don't, it's one of those where it's like people were upset about it. And it's like, I don't know what to tell you. Aaron Donald has a 10 pack at like 300 pounds and he's like 6'2". I like, he could break me in half. I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's just, of course he's going to do well at things like that. Like, Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill goes and runs a 40. Like, yeah, Tyreek Hill has actual track experience and stuff like that. But like, Tyreek Hill could step on a track field right now and go run a 100-meter dash and he would probably place in that race. He'd probably be top 6. And it's one of those where I just go like, am I upset about that? No, he runs like a 10-2 or like a 4-2 in the 40. Like, I don't, like, I'm not going to be like upset about it. Like, if I was an Olympian, I'm not going to be like, ooh, well, I've trained my whole life for this, and you just can't walk in like that and think you're going to be good. It's like, really? Because that guy's trained his entire life to run fast just in the NFL. Like,
Yeah, that's like, if you're gonna say that, that's a different story if he gets blown out or whatever, but if he actually kept up with you, I don't know what you're defending exactly. It's kind of like when people, like, if you
yep.
beat people at a game and they're just like, you're trash, and be like, well, oh, okay, then why did you lose? Like, then blow him out of the water.
Yeah, like if you beat me by 4 points, say like, like I jump into a video game and I play it for like a couple weeks, and then I'm playing 2K or Madden, for example. I'm playing Madden and I play against one of the best Madden players in the world. And I just happen to be like pretty good at Madden because, I have skills in that department, as far as playing it. And then I just decide for a couple weeks, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna try to play competitively. And I play competitively for a couple weeks, and then I lose to like one of the best in the world by like 7 points. Nobody is gonna go like, oh, he shouldn't have played against him. He didn't deserve to. Like, no, I lost by freaking one score. Like, it's the same thing. It's like, when you lose that close in that race with people that have trained their entire lives for that event, like I don't what like to me that's an incredible achievement for DK Metcalf to even be, competitive in that race, let alone, be there and everything like that. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, he's literally, look at that human being. Look at him on the screen right now. That is a 6'4", probably 230-pound man that almost that almost placed in a freaking 100-meter dash with people that are like 5'8", a buck 70. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's such a
So
stupid thing to shit on, like, for no
I
reason.
know.
Like, come on.
Just just be happy, just enjoy the content. It's fun. It's something cool to talk about. And yeah, no surprise. It's like if an NBA player competed in like the long jump. Like,
Yeah.
like LeBron in his prime competing in like the long jump or the broad like some or like the triple jump. If he actually learned that for a little bit, that man jumps 50 inches in the air and or like he has a 50-inch vertical and he's 6'8", 280 pounds. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to just apologize to you for him being a gifted like god athlete? Like,
Yeah.
like he didn't train his whole life with this. And it's like, okay, well, he was also gifted with the freaking ability to jump over me while I'm standing there. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to whine about. I don't really get it either, but
And
it's fun.
nobody's saying that Olympians don't work hard. Obviously, I'm not an Olympian. I'm an overweight average dude talking about Olympians. Like,
You're an
I will
Olympic
never be.
commentator.
Exactly. I will never be in that like department. So like I'm not saying that what you did and your accomplishments and, any of the race people that raced in this competed, that placed 6 through, 5 through 8 were, any less, their achievements are any less great. I'm just saying that you were competing against a world-class athlete and one of the best, wide receivers in the league, and, he did pretty well. Not surprised.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So
anyways,
tell me
oh,
about
yeah.
this. What's going on
Okay,
here?
so this is a fun topic. This is just wild. So I don't know. Do you know anything about this? What we're
No,
looking at?
I didn't even know it was a football related thing. I didn't.
So Dylan, this right here is gonna be the new club that's gonna be in the end zone at Las Vegas Raiders Stadium that will be 17,000 square feet with a live DJ and bottle service.
Wow. How
Like
much?
I don't know, Dylan, but I absolutely love that they're just like completely committing to the Las Vegas vibe that they are. Like it's just the fact that they're just like, yeah, we're gonna put a 17,000 square foot club just in our freaking end zone, in one of the end zones. Like, it's like freaking Calvin Harris gonna be going off in the end zone while Henry Ruggs is running for a touchdown? I have no idea, but I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it's a cool. I always liked the concept of that. I always thought that was kind of fun, but at the same time, it's like if I'm there, I'm watching the game or whatever. But for rich people, totally fun, totally understand it. Like
yeah.
that's just a
And my
super cool
favorite
flex.
And my favorite too was is I was listening to the Pat McAfee show talk about this, and I was laughing because they were like talking about how um like are could the DJ time like the beat drops? Like say like Henry Ruggs breaks free for like a streak and like catches it, like as the ball's in the air, could he just be like and
Yeah.
he catches it and then just like the beat drops and everybody goes insane. Like it's just like I was like,
Oh
"Oh
yeah.
my god." Or like, the running back breaks away for like a touchdown or something like that, and he's like, as he's going to the 30, the 20, and like the beats get building, the 5, touchdown, and like the beat just drops. Like I was like, that would be insane. I was like, honestly, if I had the money, I would definitely go for it. Just to try it, just to be there and be like, listen, I'm getting served a bottle with a
Oh
DJ right
yeah.
there, and oh yeah, there's an NFL game over there. Yeah, it's happening. Go
Yeah, it's always my
Raiders.
favorite part
Woo!
about it. It's like it's not even. I mean, like it looks like it's centralized around the game here, but at the same time, it's just like they're just kind of chilling and just yeah, like oh yeah, that's a game that's going on over at this area, not a big deal or whatever. Let's focus on our food or drinks, whatever else.
Yeah, like I absolutely can't wait for a field goal. I'm all for it. Thank good on Las Vegas Raiders for just committing full heartedly to the fact that they are in Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Let me hold on one second. I'm gonna get water and I'm gonna transition to this. Be right
okay.
back. 1 minute.
Yes. All right. So this is a movie near and dear to my heart because Spider-Man is my favorite all-time favorite superhero. I absolutely love Spider-Man. I read the comics and watched all of the shows, the 90s show being one of the greatest shows ever made. And I absolutely love Spider-Man and everything that has to do with it. So I absolutely loved the concept of them doing a Venom movie without Spider-Man because I liked the idea of them kind of exploring maybe that the character like wasn't solely having to rely on Spider-Man for popularity. What if the character was just allowed to be an anti-hero? I was kind of for that. I was like, "You know what? That's kind of fun." It was like, "It's different." We've had countless iterations of Venom in the comics being a villain, a teammate, sometimes a Spider-Man. He's always kind of in conflict with them, but also kind of working with them. It just depends. Um, I'm fine with all that, but what I'm excited for, at least in the first Venom I was excited for, was seeing the character being independent of Spider-Man and
Okay.
being on its own. I'm kind of one of those people that I'm not like, "Oh, Spider-Man's not in this movie, it can't be successful." Like I was actually excited to watch it. I was entertained by it. Like I think ultimately at the end of the day, like the movie wasn't done as well as it could have been, and I think that was partial budgetary constraints. Maybe they weren't able to have the budget they needed to make it as good as they could have. The script could have been a little bit better, yeah, obviously. But like Eddie Brock and like his interactions with Venom and the way that they did Venom and then the way that the CGI looked, like the CGI looked fine. It was just like the weird lighting of the shots and everything like that that was just bad and that wasn't good for the first movie. So then when I watched this trailer for the second movie, I'm kind of looking to see if they improve upon these things
There's
because now they're making a sequel. It's got a little bit more money behind it because it knows that it can make money. And it does. It looks a lot better, honestly. It looks like some of the shots are done a little bit better. The CGI is a little bit, just tighter. And then the lighting on the CGI looks a little bit better to kind of allow the CGI to stand on its own like it should, and it looks fantastic. And honestly, I'm excited for Carnage. I'm excited to see that plot line play out because in the comics, it's a very different story than what appears to be going on in this. So in the comics, Carnage actually comes from Venom. Venom, the symbiotes, what are the alien species that the symbiotes originate from? They kind of basically reproduce asexually. So what that means is essentially they can bud off into new symbiotes on their own. And one of the things that happens with Carnage and why Carnage is able to even be developed is that he buds off of Venom, and so it's kind of like Venom's kid, kind of in a weird understanding of that, but essentially it's coming from Venom. So basically it's more powerful than Venom. And I think if I remember correctly, there was something weird. And you can see Carnage on the screen now. I think there was something weird about how like Carnage was like the 1,000th symbiote to come about in line or something like that. Can't remember. It's been a while since I've looked at the comics or read them and everything like that. So don't quote me on that. But essentially, I'm really looking forward to this movie because I think it's going to be interesting to see how they play with Carnage because Carnage came about from Venom, Eddie Brock and Cletus Cassidy were cellmates, and then after becoming cellmates, Venom broke off and formed Carnage, or split off, and Carnage was formed. Carnage then attached to Cletus Cassidy, while Venom attached back to Eddie Brock, and then Eddie Brock had to get the help of Spider-Man to basically end Carnage and get rid of Carnage. Now that Spider-Man's not in this movie and Venom's on its own, I'm curious to see how that plays out because obviously Venom needed Spider-Man to take down Carnage. So I'm kind of honestly, I'm just excited to see how they do it. Where basically, I'm curious to see how they're able to take down Carnage, or if he's taken down permanently, or if it's a thing that may pop out later. In the with Spider-Man, and maybe they're trying to work that in. I'm just curious to see how it goes. I liked the original Venom. Obviously, it wasn't a great movie as far as like some things you would like I said, the lighting on the CGI, the script could have been better, shots could have been a little bit better. There were some shots that were a little cheesy, but ultimately, like it was there. Like the good movie was there, just needed to be a little bit better and a little bit cultivated more. And so, hopefully, in the sequel, they're able to do that and improve upon all the things that I've kind of talked about, as well as that kind of drew back from the original. And maybe the second one will pit Venom and Carnage in a new, you know, battle that's interesting. And I really kind of also hope that they keep Carnage as honest as he is in the comics, because in the comics Carnage does not care. Carnage will kill literally everybody in the way and does not, like, will not, it doesn't matter if it's a kid, or I'm pretty sure he like pushed an old lady down the stairs one time just to kill her. I'm pretty sure he like killed a child like at one point in the comics. Like he
Oh.
literally does not care, and like that kind of brutality is like what needs to be honest to the character to make it real, to make it like, okay, he's a very serious threat. And what's nice about Carnage, as opposed to most villains have a reason for what they're doing. Carnage is literally just what it is. Carnage, it's literally just likes to kill and is a serial killer, and that's it. That's the character. Character's a serial killer, likes to kill. Boom. Now try to stop that. Now try to stop that villain who's now got this crazy, incredible power and wants to just kill, and that's it. I'm excited for it.
And what better serial killer person to play than Woody Harrelson?
Oh yeah, Woody
That's it.
Harrelson. I'm fine. I'm glad that they fixed his wig. By the way, it was a terrible wig, and the shot at the end of Venom, it was awful. Like it was like, oh, I'm excited. They're bringing Cletus. Ooh, what is he wearing? I'm like, that's kind of how I felt about watching that scene. So I'm glad that they fixed the wig. And Woody Harrelson's an incredible actor. So Woody Harrelson in that one scene where they just were like, I've been waiting for you or something like that, or I've missed you or something like that. He says it with like this like look of just like complete insanity, and I'm like, that's amazing. It's like he's gonna be a perfect Cletus Cassidy. and I just can't wait. I'm excited for the movie. I hope that they do it as well as I think they can. And the bar is not set incredibly high because of Venom 1. Like, it's set high enough where I go, like, this should be an enjoyable, but, like, if they improve upon some of the things from the first one, then it's gonna be a great movie. So, like, I'm really excited for it.
Yeah. Okay, and I also do not like horror movies at all, so this is definitely on
Oh,
your side
yeah,
as
I'm a
well.
massive for all the listeners and everybody out there that's gonna listen in the future, I absolutely love horror movies. I watch all of the horror movies that come out. I also watch all of, like, the B-rated horror movies randomly on, like, a Sunday morning. Like, I'm the guy that, like, on a Sunday morning at, like,
Psychopath.
10 o'clock. Yeah, yeah, like, honestly, I like 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I'm like, "That looks good," and I'll just click play, and I'll just have it on, and I'll just be, like, watching it, like, drinking my coffee, and I'm like, "That was a little scary." Like, that's just how I am with horror movies. I love them, they're my favorite genre. So, the Conjuring universe has put out some really good ones. Conjuring 1 was fantastic, Conjuring 2 was fantastic on its own as well, and so I absolutely am excited for Conjuring 3. James Wan handed the, reins over to a new director, so I'm curious to see what direction he takes it. I believe it's the same director that did, La Llorona, which was also in the Conjuring universe. So I think that it could be good. I'm excited for it possibly being good. So we'll see. The trailer looked interesting. It's kind of a different concept with there being like an actual case, like a law, like an actual case in court that's happening. So that's entertaining. It's interesting. It's different. So I'm all for it. The Conjuring movies have been great. I love the Insidiouses. I love the first Annabelle, not great. Second Annabelle, incredible movie. Third Annabelle, could have done without. The Nun, not great. But overall, the scares have been good. The movies are usually done pretty well, even if they're not great. So I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. It's one of the horror movies I've been like hoping that would come out soon. And I remember they stopped filming because of COVID, and I was like, darn it. I was like, I'm excited for this freaking movie. I was like, I want another Conjuring because they're gonna be good.
Yeah.
So finally, I'm excited that this one's coming out. Like I said, new director, so I'm interested to see what direction he takes it, and if it's just as good as the originals. And if it's good on its own, I'll take that too. But I'm excited for it.
And this looks like it's another in theaters, but also on HBO Max. I think if I'm seeing that correctly.
I think so, if that's what it says.
Yeah.
Um, which is good because I love that everything's coming out on HBO Max. Yeah, it's definitely HBO Max, which is great because that's where me and my girlfriend are gonna watch it because I make her watch all of the horror movies that I want to watch. So yeah, can't wait. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm ecstatic. But, and definitely one of the trailers that have been going crazy. There's been a lot of interesting trailers out. So, obviously we talked about Venom, we talked about The Conjuring, and we're about to talk about what Marvel is doing moving forward because it's really interesting how they're doing it. There's a lot of movies that they have slated. I know that, there's been things like, for instance, which I'll give you a second to finish editing it. Um, I know there's a couple questions I have about movies and such. Um, so right off the bat, the Eternals, and I put this up there as an image that I wanted you to read just because it goes over their names. And I don't know the names of the Eternals. I just know what they are. So we'll learn now together. But essentially the Eternals is an ancient, if I remember correctly, it's like an ancient alien race that is like all powerful, and it's like these group of people. I think there's like 12 of them or something like that, or 10 of them or something like
It's
that. We're
it's a lot to fit
basically,
on one screen. That's how many there are. There's a lot.
yeah, Dylan is struggling and we appreciate it.
Hmm?
But essentially the Eternals are like these all-powerful beings that existed a long time ago. And I believe are the okay, Dylan, you might have to help me out with this. Are the Eternals the same thing as like the Collector and
Um,
everything?
I don't believe so. I think the collector was just a freak, and I think they're more
No,
along
because
the lines of like the
the Collector, because there's the Eternals, and then there's like another race of beings that are like the most powerful beings in the universe. Like,
I think it was the
and
Watchers, wasn't it?
no, it's not the Watchers. It's like the Collector was one of them, and then Goldblum was another one. from Thor.
Right.
He was the gameskeeper or whatever. There's like it's this race, and you can actually remember because they have a blue the collector, if you remember, had a blue streak down his chin, and so did Jeff Goldblum in the movie, and it was because they're related. They're both brothers.
Okay. Yeah. I do know what you're talking about. The name is the Grandmasters? No, he is the Grandmaster, that's right.
Yeah, he is the Grandmaster.
Elders, the Elders of the Universe?
Yes, that is what they are. The Elders or whatever is the head of the renowned as the largest keeper. Blah blah. Yeah, so they're like this original. They're like the original beings of the universe. Um, that are like the most powerful beings in the entire universe.
And of course they're evil.
Yeah, well, they're not really evil. They just don't care because they're more
Yeah.
powerful than everybody else. So they're just like, do whatever. And
Yeah.
like they only care about like whatever they're doing at the time. But I know I know they're all like brothers and sisters. The collector's one of them, Gameskeeper's one. But essentially I think they're different than the Eternals. These are like these people are more powerful than the Eternals.
Yeah.
Like I think the collector's more powerful, if I remember correctly.
Is it supposed to be like they're the antagonists of this then? Because then I was always wondering who's supposed to be the conflict in a
Yeah, I don't
Eternals
know.
movie.
I don't know. I don't know
Unless it's
who
like
the enemy is.
themselves.
Yeah.
They
Well,
fight amongst themselves.
there's like one Eternal that's like man, the same name, distributed, blah blah, blah. I don't care. After an unexpected tragedy follows the events, the Eternals, an immortal alien race created by the Celestials. That's what they're called. That's what they're
Oh,
called.
yes.
That's what the Collector and them are called, the Celestials.
Okay.
The Celestials who have secretly lived on Earth for over 7,000 years reunite to protect humanity from their evil counterparts, the Deviants. That's what it is. Okay, this is now it's all coming together. The Deviants are the bad guys against the Eternals, and I'm pretty sure that Thanos is like half deviant,
Okay.
and that's why Thanos is Thanos. That's because he's not half. I think he's half deviant.
Okay. That's all
So,
the
and that's why
lore.
Thanos. Yeah, that's why Thanos is like different than his own people. Okay, it's starting to come back to me now. I remember some of this when I was reading it. Yeah, essentially the Eternals are an immortal alien race that were created by the Celestials. Celestials are the Gameskeeper, which is Jeff Goldblum, um Benicio del Toro, which was the Collector. Those are the Celestials. They're the ones that they're like the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe. They created the Eternals, who are gonna fight the Deviants. And the Deviants, like I said, is Thanos' half deviant.
Okay.
So there we go. Figured it out. Finally. It took me a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So they're all just superheroes with like specific abilities.
Yeah.
So it's basically like a Justice League, but like a weird Justice League.
They just think they're better than everyone else, kind of Justice League.
Yeah, like Angelina Jolie, it says her character can form any weapon out of cosmic energy, develops a close bond with Gilgamesh over the centuries. Icarus, which is played by the guy from Game of Thrones, Richard Madden. He's the tactical leader of the Eternals who can fly, project energy beams from his eyes, and has superhuman strength, aka very like Superman-esque type of character. Um, Another Eternal can project energy projectiles from their hands. Um, Another one, super speed. Yeah, they're literally just like the Justice League, but like a group of like ancient, aliens that are immortal.
Yeah.
So okay, so
Interesting
yeah, that's
cast.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely an interesting cast. There's some people in here that I didn't expect to be in here. I'll tell you that
Like
much.
Angelina Jolie, I did not know she had anything to do with this until now.
No, and yeah, it's an interesting cast. I'm excited for it because it's a Marvel production, and so it's something that's interesting. And I love that Marvel is like now starting to explore some more obscure characters, like Shang-Chi, who's really obviously not super like well known, and then you have the Eternals and all this stuff. I love that they're bringing Blade in. I love that they're doing obviously another Guardians of the Galaxy with Thor involved. Then you have Love and Thunder. The one thing I do want to say is I'm really interested on what they're going to do with Black Panther because
Yeah.
like I obviously rest in peace to one of my favorite actors. Um I don't know what they're going to do with the character. I don't understand what you do. I mean, how do you get over losing like Chadwick Boseman? I mean, he's one of the like Chadwick Boseman was a guy who's going to be one of those actors that was going to be like heading the franchise moving forward.
Yeah.
One of the younger actors, him, Tom Holland is Spider-Man, those characters that are a little bit younger that can develop the next massive production phases and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they move forward. Me and my dad were talking, maybe, they're Marvel, they can figure it out. Maybe they bring back Michael B. Jordan
I did hear stuff
and
like that. Yeah.
instead of him being dead, he's like revived, but like feels like a sense of like belonging finally, like he can become the Black Panther, or something like that. I could see them doing that, and obviously Michael B. Jordan's an incredible actor, so like I would be 100% happy if Michael B. Jordan, like if anybody's going to take over the Black Panther role, Michael B. Jordan is like the most fitting actor for that. It's just one of those where they'd have to work some magic to get it to make sense storyline wise. But also like can you really blame them for having to make magic happen when Chadwick, unfortunately passed away so early on, in his life and career. So
Yeah, I think they get a
it's
free pass no matter what, honestly. Like, there's no way they're gonna be really held back too much for it. I know, like, the most common thing is, like, they'll just have, like, Shuri be Black Panther instead. And actually, I just saw this come up, like, on the timeline as well. But apparently, Martin Freeman is gonna be back in Black Panther, so that's pretty neat.
okay.
As Everett Ross, I thought he was pretty fun. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I like them.
I like. I'm sure. I know they've had more time about this. Like, I think actually, like, he told like Kevin Feige, however you say it.
Kevin Feige.
Yeah, like a really long time ago, like maybe even Infinity War type of filming of what was going on. I think that they knew about it, so they had time to plan on it just in case. And I'm sure they do that because, of course, they would.
Yeah, and unfortunately they're a corporation, and you have to assume all possibilities are possible, and that's so unfortunately I'm sure they probably had, a an unfortunate plan for if that was to occur, which it did. So I'm sure that there's something there. I just, I'm fine with Shuri becoming like a Black Panther. I just don't know if, you built the Black Panther character up, and I loved the first Black Panther, everything about it, the story, the action, obviously the actors and characters and everything, and then the soundtrack was fantastic by Kendrick. I absolutely loved everything about Black Panther. It's just I don't, it's one of those where it's just I don't know how you transition well moving forward because I was really looking forward to Black Panther being a bigger part of the Marvel universe. And it's, obviously with, Chadwick being gone, it's hard to take the same character, the same vibe and everything. Like I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but I do wish that they would do something with maybe like Michael B. Jordan being revived and coming back and taking over taking the mantle, as one of those maybe where, maybe same thing that happened with the Winter Soldier, where he spent time in Wakanda, and after being defeated and everything like that, spent time in Wakanda. Yeah, he got deprogrammed, but the thing is like he spent time in Wakanda and then came out and now is the person you root for. Maybe that's the same thing with Michael B. Jordan. Maybe Michael B. Jordan comes back as, a character who's, understood in his defeat that he was wrong and, that he needs to look at everything a little bit differently. And then he becomes the Black Panther.
Yeah. So apparently, two things. Apparently, uh, Feige, whatever. Still can't
Kevin
say it.
Feige.
Kevin
Just say
Feige.
Kevin Feige.
Okay. So apparently he didn't know about his cancer until he died. I was completely wrong upon that. And they also
Wow.
confirmed that Black Panther character would be retired going forward instead of
Oh,
having someone to step in place of that. So apparently Wakanda Forever is supposed to focus on the supporting cast and like Wakanda itself. So I don't know how you do that exactly without a main
Yeah,
lead,
I
but
mean, I'm gonna watch it and I'm gonna hope for the best, but it's gonna be an uphill battle when, it's you don't have the character, that is the centerpiece. So I
yeah.
don't know. Like I said, I really hope that they do something. I really hope that they don't just straight up leave it as Black Panther's gone. Like I really hope that they do something along the lines of bringing in somebody.
Yeah, it's just such a weird, like, tough situation.
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
like
What are they?
I
How long do they say it's supposed to be until it comes out now? Do they give themselves like a year, 2 years, was
I
it?
think it's 2022, so or late 2022,
Wow.
if
Wow,
I
that's
remember
crazy.
correctly.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you do in that situation. It'd be really interesting either way. I'm sure they'll come up with something, but like I don't even know. You have to hit so many marks. You have to like be respectful. You have to also stick with your decisions you already made. You also still have to progress your outward universe. Like that's such. That's I don't. It's a very interesting challenge to go over, and it's like there's no way to replace like obviously him and the impact to the character regardless. So like
Mhm.
you're setting yourself up to lose more or less. But I mean, you have to do something, I guess.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you seen all the article about it now?
Well, I'm reading the article now about the villain of the movie, and
Is
that it's
that
going to be named.
disclosed?
Yeah, it says that somebody revealed that basically it's going to be Neymar,
Soccer
which
player?
is no, no,
Yeah.
or Neymar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's the king. The movie idea was essentially Wakanda Forever was supposed to be a clash between monarchs of Wakanda and the ruler of Atlantis.
Oh, okay.
However, with T'Challa being written out, Neymar will see an opening to conquer the nation now that it's weak from losing its beloved leader. Roman also teases that there will be a huge battle between the two kingdoms in the sequel. Comic book readers will know that Neymar has been utilized as both a hero and villain and everything in between over the decades.
How do they address the situation too? Like and like obviously in the movie, besides like the actual plot and where it's going.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess basically what it's saying is that it was supposed to be a battle between these two kings. The
Yeah.
king, obviously Black Panther fighting the King of Atlantis, but it's basically now saying that the movie has now shifted to where basically it might instead of being a battle of kings, it might be a battle of kingdoms where they're fighting each other, the Wakandans and Atlanteans.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Still could be entertaining. Like I said, I wish that they would do something with the Black Panther. Like I understand that I understand being respectful to Chadwick Boseman and everything like that, but I also feel like, do like I said, I feel like honestly the best way to do it would be to bring back Michael B. Jordan and him not become the Black Panther, but become, you know, like I think he was like the Black Jaguar or something like that, or he was like a jaguar
Yeah. Yeah.
or something,
I forget what his character's
something
name
like
was.
that. Yeah, I forget what he was technically. But just something where, like, he's, like, coming back and it's like, Black Panther died with Chadwick. That's okay, we understand that, but, like, to be respectful with the character, let's bring in the other guy from the movie, like, the other character who's also a massive named actor.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
think
don't know.
that would be respectful.
I can kind of agree with that. I think it'd be something. I don't know. I guess I can't compare against something I don't know what they're gonna do, but
Yeah,
be
who
interesting to
knows?
see what they show.
But,
All right.
alright, any other topics? Let me see if we covered everything.
I think we got to pretty much everything. I think there's two things
Yeah.
pretty much to go over. I'm gonna have to cut it though. I gotta also go to bed.
Yeah,
You know, so quiet down.
we'll just push those off into next week. Yeah,
Yeah.
so as a little teaser for next week, for people out there, the two topics that we didn't get to, which we'll just cover next time, this ridiculous Mayweather versus Jake Paul thing. Um, ridiculous is the word I use. And then the other thing that we'll talk about too is a little bit more baseball, as well as the whole Madison Bumgarner situation, throwing a no hitter, and then it doesn't count. Question mark. We'll talk about that next week, as well as some other things that pop up during the week.
Okay. Yep. Thanks for tuning in. If you're able to, please drop the subscription onto the YouTube channel, and also check out those where the clips are going to be posted at, or follow the Twitch channel if you're able. Otherwise, we'll be back next Wednesday, somewhere in the span of 8 to 9 p.m. Central Time. And yeah, that's all I got.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and this has been the Dylan and Dylan podcast.
All right, good